Welcome back to another episode of Bravo and Blaze with Jenny Blaze, where we talk about reality TV, Bravo, of course, but we also cover things like true crime, documentaries, stand up comedy, pop culture, and of course, blazing. And when I say blazing, I mean consuming cannabis in a mindful and responsible way as an extension of health and wellness. We also like to have expert guests from time to time. And with that, I'd like to introduce today's guest. Dr. Jonathan M. Fields. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jenny. I'm excited.
I'm so excited to have you here. So, Dr. Jonathan, you are an integrative specialist, founder, keynote speaker, author, artist, martial arts instructor, acupuncture, functional medicine, longevity, mental wellness, and plant medicine advocate.
Mhm.
This all aligns very well with what we advocate for here at Bravo and Blaze. However, before we get into all that, I just want to tell the story of how we got here, you and I. So, over the summer, the Olympics were hosted in Paris, and for the first time ever, we had breaking in the Olympics.
Mhm.
I myself personally was so hyped when I found out about this because I look at breakers, b-boys, b-girls as modern day ninjas. Like legit, you could not get closer to a ninja than a break dancer.
I think the breakers, well, and we refer to them as breakers, not break dancers. That was the
Right.
'80s term.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think the breakers make the ninjas look lazy. To be honest,
Seriously, the power moves that have
yeah,
evolved from decades ago
power
is
moves, air moves,
insane.
whole nother
It's
level.
wild, wild. I always wanted to learn how to break dance, and I even tried to teach myself years ago. This is like over a decade ago, but there really wasn't anything online, and I couldn't
Mm.
find like like a private tutor or teacher or whatever. There's no breaking classes.
Well, we
So
can get you set up now if you still want
yeah,
to.
no, I'm so
Yeah.
excited. Back then, there was nothing, right? So I found the closest thing possible, which was a circus arts training school where there's like Cirque du Soleil people who were like performers who are the
Hmm.
actual trainers. And
Cirque du Soleil actually has b-boys on the road with them too.
yes, I know
I know
there's
a few
such a
that work for
good,
them.
I love the crossover
Mhm.
because I love Cirque. I love going to see as many shows as possible. And I have noticed that they started incorporating
Yep.
more breaking lately. And I
But
love it because really that is like ninja life to me.
last 10 years or so, they've had like some b-boys and b-girls on the road with them.
Yeah, and it makes sense with your martial arts background that you're into breaking and everything. But so as was going on, the Olympics was airing, and I asked on social media, does anyone know somebody who could teach a 42-year-old beginner how to break and go to the next Olympics? And one of my OG followers actually messaged me and said, yes, my cousin. And that turned out to be you. So I want to give a shout out to Elizabeth who connected us. But I'll be honest, when she sent me your Instagram profile, I was kind of confused. And so, like I mentioned when introducing you, you're an integrative specialist, you do acupuncture, and you advocate for alternative medicines and mental wellness. Where does breaking fit into all of this?
So Breakin has been one of those things that I just can't escape. I've been involved in the scene for almost 30 years.
Wow.
I got involved with the OG of Miami Breakin, this guy by the name of B-Boy Speedy Legs in the late '90s, and we started. Well, he's him and this guy Zulu Gremlin started this event down here in Miami called the B-Boy Masters Pro-Am, which at the time was one of the biggest events in the world and one of the most influential events as far as pioneering breaking into competitions in the world. It was one of the first
Oh,
events to start pioneering and adding different elements of the dance and adding different categories and different competitions for the dance, where a lot of the events worldwide were just like, okay, you had one contest and you throw in all the breakers and the poppers and everybody. They started segmenting it and saying, okay, well, there's a b-boy battle and a b-girl battle and a popping battle and a locking battle and a up rock battle. And then we also had DJ battles and graffiti battles and MC battles. And there wasn't a lot of this going on at the time, mid '90s, when they actually started this thing. So we've been working together. I've been working with Speedy Legs. We have another company called Hip Hop Elements. We still run the Pro Am, and now I'm on the board of a national nonprofit to advance the sport of break-in and teach young people how to become professionals, professional athletes, and how to manage themselves, called USA Breakin, and that's at USA Breakin without a G at the end.
That is so cool. So wait, you mentioned young people, helping young people learn how to be
Mhm.
breakers. What about the not so young? Still
Us
young, but not so
middle-aged
young.
folks. I'm only a couple years older than you. Yeah, there's more access to classes now. There's a lot you can learn online. If you're in a densely populated area, we could probably find you a tutor or a class. If you're out in the sticks, yeah, online might be your best bet in the meantime. And you could always visit an event, every now and then. But there's events now. This is one of the things that changed when we started doing our events down here in Miami. There was maybe a handful of events around the country, and ours was one of the biggest. So we used to have people come in from, France and Italy and Mexico and Canada. People come from all over the world, Japan, like everywhere to these
Korea,
type of events. Yep. And
Philippines.
everywhere. I mean,
I
you could,
feel like we're born breakdancing. Well,
yeah.
not me, because I need to learn and I'm only half. So no, I'm just
It's
kidding. But
well,
everyone,
then you have the rhythm in your blood. Then you'll be okay. You can learn.
were you personally involved in getting breaking into this past Olympics that we had?
So I was not personally involved with the Olympics. USA Breaking at the time was actually born to be, aside from the World Dance Sport Federation and the USA Dance, which is a ballroom dance organization that ended up being responsible for bringing breaking in the Olympics. The IOC looked at it, and the USOPC kind of looked at breaking as a whole and said, "Okay, well, you guys don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the experience, or these national and international organizations to bring it in." So, USA Breaking was actually designed and created to be that counterbalance. But what happened was, USA Dance, the American portion of the World Dance Sport Federation, didn't like that. It looked like USA Breaking was trying to have some power and be independent out of their iron grip.
No
And
way. There's
yeah, so a
power
lot.
dynamics.
There's a lot of politics, as you can imagine, with
Oh my
break-in,
gosh.
Olympics, IOC, all that. So a lot of people jumped ship and went over there, and then they started a new organization there. So we kind of took our focus off the Olympics themselves. I mean, once again, the Olympics is only something that happens once every 4 years. They've already
Mm,
removed breaking off the roster for 2028, and that was a
yeah.
decision made last year in October, long before
What?
this Olymp. Yeah, they had nothing to
So
do with this year's
going
Olympics.
into the Olympics, they
It was
already
already
knew?
removed. Yep.
Oh, what a
Um,
bummer. They really hyped it up. Like
We've
it
been
was,
waiting like, I don't know, 30, 40 years to see this. I have friends that
yeah.
performed in the Olympics in the 80s with Lionel
Mhm.
Richie at the inauguration ceremony for the Olympics over there. And they've been talking about it ever since. We've been trying ever since. We've been doing all these different international events. I think the level of competition is there. Like you mentioned, the athleticism, I think, is on par or greater than pretty much any other, Olympic sport that's out there. If you
Hell
look at
yeah.
gymnastics or ice
Mhm.
skating or curling, I think a lot of times there's very little comparison when it comes to athleticism involved with breaking. So it's really a shame, and it's such a beautiful dance, and so dynamic, I think, and so exciting and fun, and something that I think young people, even though it's a 40, 50-year-old thing at this point, it seems like something that would be shaping the future of what's happening in these kinds of things. So it's sad. uh, Fortunately, they're already talking about possibly bringing it back for 2032 in
No way.
Australia.
No. In
Yeah,
wait,
in
on
Australia.
wait, because is Australia already chosen for the next?
Yeah,
Okay,
Australia.
so that's just a
Australia is
coincidence
2032. Who knows?
because of so
Eh,
Reagan
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
was a major, I don't want to say highlight, but side effect.
Highlight might
Reagan,
be a intense word. I would say
yeah,
more
I
like
don't
a
memorable.
sideshow that took over and kind of
Sideshow is
grew
good.
and morphed into its own
Oh
thing.
my gosh. What are your thoughts on Reagan? Like, I,
Yeah, I think it's Ray Gunn, but her performance was not up to par with any of the other B girls that are out there. I think the other B girls that were out there were phenomenal.
so good.
Yeah, I mean, better than most of the men you see worldwide,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, to see that level of B girling, and which is super cool for us too, is logistics actually trained here in Miami. She was the one that actually battled and took out Ray Gunn in the Olympics. She's not from Miami. She's been here 3 or 4 years training with some friends of mine
Oh,
down in Miami and Breakin MIA. So the level of competition was there. She was not up to par with that. I actually saw the qualifier that she competed to get into the Olympics, and both of the competitors were not up to par. To me, it looked like she was not the one that should have won either. I think it's
man.
unfortunate that it turned into what it is. The sad part is we have this new sport that premiered. We have these gold medalists and champions. Canada, Phil Wizard took the gold, right?
Mhm.
We had all these other champions. Japan took home the B girling. Another guy from Florida, Victor, who grew up at our events and these things. He's from Orlando, right? He took home the bronze, and it kind of got overshadowed by a gazillion memes. I mean, every day I'm
Yeah.
still seeing a dozen new memes, and I love them. They're funny, but it's kind of weird how what turned out to be the joke of the games is now this international sensation, and essentially made her
A
possibly even
celebrity.
not only a celebrity, but quite possibly the most famous
Break.
breaker of all time.
Yeah, oh, no.
Right? There's only a couple names that I could think they even throw into that category. And for the younger generation who wasn't around maybe 20, 30, 40 years or our age, they might not even know who any of these people are. But now everybody knows her name, her face, and her signature
Oh,
moves.
no.
So I think she achieved what she wanted to do. I just think it was not in good class and not really. Well, not how we wanted Breaking as a sport to be remembered. We finally
Yeah,
had our debut, and that's and it kind of overshadowed the level of incredible talent that
I
was actually
know.
highlighted and displayed.
I know, it's insane. But so one thing I heard is that Ray Gunn has doubled down saying that she was taking this seriously. Like this was not some kind of hoax because people are
Mm.
disturbed by this and they're looking into it. I'm sure there's going to be like a whole podcast dedicated to this somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen all the conspiracy theories from she bought her way in, and it was privilege, and it was staged, all this. I don't know that I believe any of that. And there is. If you look at the men from Australia that actually competed in the Olympics, we're pretty good, not on the
Yeah,
level of the other men. And Australia and that side of the world, Oceania, they have a strong hip hop scene. They've been in the game for 30 plus years now. I just don't think their best of the best was able to come out there. And I don't think it was
yeah,
a scam. I don't think there was any improprieties with bribing judges or anything like that was suggested. I just really think the day of the qualifiers and whoever made it to there were not the best of the best. And I've seen some stuff circulating online. They said like some of the other B girls at the time, some of the best B girls from that area either just had babies or had just retired or
oh,
couldn't make it to the qualifiers or whatever. It just seems weird that there's such a discrepancy in the amount of talent. Nothing against her, I don't think everybody should be bashing her. I mean, I think it's funny. I love the memes. Um, but yeah, I don't think we should be holding her personally or be upset about it. I think, like I said, the real tragedy is that it overshadowed how hard and how amazing the other dancers were.
yeah. No, I totally agree. Let's move off of Ray Gunn because I think she's had enough spotlight. I want to go back to what you were talking about how the breaking world had to kind of build that infrastructure and
Mm,
start to show that I mean, you said that they started building out categories to start judging so that it could be more of a competitive sport. And that reminds me of cheerleading. I hope you don't take offense to this,
not at
but
all.
I was a cheerleader. I was an NCAA All American
Mm,
cheerleader in 1999. And I looked at cheerleading when I started in middle school as like, oh, this will just be a fun activity. But as the sport grew. I don't even think it was considered a sport then. It is, I think, considered a sport now. And if you look at the competitions now, it's just like breakdancing when you look at the evolution of where you started to where you are now. The types of tumbling, the types
hmm
of stunts that they're
Yep.
doing are mind blowing. And like I wouldn't be able to keep up with that today, but I just find that interesting. Maybe these types of sports, breaking and cheering, maybe like ballroom dancing or whatever, like maybe they're just in their own category.
They are, and I like the comparison. I still think I think breaking is more difficult, but you have to be incredibly fit to be in cheer. You have to be, I think the routines are extremely creative. I think they're beautiful to watch, and I would definitely categorize it. I think as a sport, or I could see how you can it could be competitive for sure,
Mhm.
right? So, there's been a lot of arguments, even from some of the pioneers of breaking, that it shouldn't be a sport, that it should just be a dance and be left alone as a
Oh,
cultural
really?
grassroots movement. Yeah, there's a lot of the pioneers, a lot of people just don't agree with it being on this level at all. And then there's some of us who are like, I think the majority of us are like, Olympics, cool, but we don't care. This is our
Yeah.
life day in, day out. We've been doing it 30 years,
Yeah.
40 years. 50 years, like this has zero effect on what's going on. It's nice that it brings more eyes and possibly more
Mm.
sponsorships and things kind of into the culture, but it doesn't really affect what's happening on a grassroots level. Like, the hardcore B-boys and B-girls and the hardcore hip hop heads, they're going to be there long after the hype is gone. I mean, we kind of went through it in the 80s, right? There was a massive craze for break-in and then it kind of died down. Break-in never went away. There was always, the core people who kept it alive 80s, 90s. It really came back and flourished in the 90s. That's when we started all our stuff down here in Miami. There was a handful of events in New York, LA, a few other places going on. The rest of the world had big events. Europe was hosting big events. Germany was one of the biggest events in the world, Battle of the Year, that kind of helped to bring back the scene internationally as well. So it's difficult to judge these kinds of things. Speaking of the judging too, the judging for the Olympic break-in was the entire judging. It was like a 40 something page rule book. I think it might even been more. And it was designed by a British guy and a German guy, which a lot of people had a problem with as well. This is an American created sport. It
Yeah.
was created, in
I have a
America.
problem with that.
Lots of people had problems with it, right? And then we're like, why are we? Not that these guys are not pioneers in their own
Right.
countries or in their own right or don't have a say, but a lot of the pioneers of breaking were actually kind of like blackballed out of being involved with the Olympics or Olympic structure at
Mm.
all. And the decision making and the politics involved, it was quite cutthroat, to put it in a nice way.
Oh my gosh, my audience loves tea. What other tea do
Mm.
you have on the inside? We love drama.
It was a lot, to be honest with you. I don't think even our best competitors from the States went.
I was gonna say, like, it sounds like maybe since I don't know if it was because it's the first time I went to the Olympics, but and especially with Australia, it sounds like
Yeah.
we may not have had the best representation
We did
across the
not.
board.
We did not. I mean, I think a lot of countries may have had that same issues, but even in the U.S., and not taking away anything from the people who went, they were incredible, phenomenal athletes, amazing dancers. We're happy for them. We support them. We support breaking as a whole. We support the movement. Not to, poo-poo on anybody else's
Yeah.
parade, but personally, and I know lots of other people, I think, it could have been better. And there was limited access to people. A lot of people didn't know when trials were happening. A lot of people didn't feel like some of the judging or some of it was fair. There was some favoritism, I think, involved and some possible nepotism like stuff going on within
Not
the scene.
nepotism. Wait, where?
Not actual relations, but as far as the way the selection process was and who got to go where and who had you know stuff going on, there was a lot behind the scenes that I think a lot of people were extremely unhappy and disillusioned and disappointed with. But once again, it's over now, and we're still here. We still have events. We're coming up on our 28th, I think, or 29th year anniversary of our event this year, and there's still stuff happening nationwide, worldwide. I think one of the things I was mentioning earlier is it went from having a few big events in the U.S. every year to now every major city has probably one, two events every single weekend plus practice spots all over the states.
Good.
So we're happy to see it grow. And we're just hoping that this will usher in a generation of newer, younger kids who kind of renew the interest back in this. Otherwise, the scene will die out.
So you did talk about how the breakers are athletes. And I love that you say that because they really are. They're like ninjas. And being an athlete, there a lot comes with that. Your health, and wellness
Mm,
obviously comes into play. Simone Biles, I think, did an amazing job
mhm,
going from last Olympics to this Olympics and really being transparent about her mental wellness. And I
mm.
love to see that. Like, I see the evolution of athletes and hopefully the rest of the country kind of evolving and being more aware that we need to take care of our bodies, not just physically, but mentally as well.
And
So,
spiritually.
and spiritually, yes, absolutely. So, apart from breaking, you are an advocate for to
Different
learn.
integrative medicines, functional medicine,
Yes,
acupuncture, herbal medicine, nutrients, diet, any sort of intervention as natural as possible that'll have kind of long lasting effects with the least amount of surgical and pharmaceutical intervention, I think is good
yes.
as long as it's safe and effective, which it usually is.
I totally agree. And before our interview, as I was prepping, I Googled you, obviously, and I saw that you had your own personal experience that led you down this path. Is
Mm,
that something that you're willing to share?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
I'd be happy to. So I want to say about 13, 14 years ago, I was super fit. I was teaching martial arts professionally and doing graphic design and web design. I was an artist. I was into the breaking and the DJing stuff and, eating very healthy. At least I thought so, right? And had a very good lifestyle. At least I thought so. Probably overtraining a bit. I was probably spending 2 to 3 hours a day in the dojo, in the gym, right? Training, doing that kind of thing. And it got to a point in my life where my health deteriorated quickly and got severe. It got so bad that I was completely disabled for about a year. I couldn't work anymore. I was having hot flashes, chills, severe fatigue, severe depression, carpal tunnel, tendonitis, um, like critical back pain, neck pain. I'd wake up with my hands burning. I'd have to kind of shake
No
them out. I was
way.
losing my grip strength. I just had pain, every systemic joint pain all over my body. And my hands would lock up after a couple minutes on the computer. And I spent a whole year trying to figure out what was wrong, going from doctor to doctor to doctor. Most of what I heard was, "Oh, it's all in your head. It's fine." And here's some muscle relaxers. Here's some pain pills, which I had already known better. I'd seen friends and family and everybody kind of go through that, so I wasn't gonna, fall for that. I took a muscle relaxer one day, and I was like, I didn't like how it made me feel. It made me feel like real down and depressed and loopy, and I was already kind of in that zone anyway. And I'm used to being this active, vibrant person, and I had 2 doctors wanted to do carpal tunnel surgery on me that I never did. I was actually scheduled twice and
Oh
luckily
my
got out of
God.
both of them. They had done cortisone shots on my wrist once. I lasted about a week or 2 till I did some push-ups and all the pain and numbness and tingling and burning came right back.
Oh, yeah.
I seen endocrinologists. I had biopsies done on my thyroid. I had doctors laugh at me. I had doctors think I was, a junkie looking for drugs. Meanwhile, I was like, no, I will take zero pills,
Yeah.
zero anything. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And then one day I walked into a friend of mine's vitamin shop by the name of Reed Eckert, who's one of my mentors, who recently passed. And he pretty much saved my life. I walked him through the door and he was like, "You look like shit." And I told him, exactly what was going on. And he's like, "Oh, you're fine. I'll get you better." And I didn't believe him because I had already seen all these, a dozen plus doctors and specialists. And I'm like, "You sell vitamins. What are you gonna do for me?" And I had known him for 10 years prior to that. Since high school, we used to go to the shop, buy protein or whatever. But I didn't know that he worked with serious chronic illness. And he was actually a formulator. He invented vitamins for some of the major companies and worked with MDs to create new formulas, and he saved my life. He put me with a good chiropractor. He got me on the right nutrients, had me change my diet a bit, which was, I mean, I wasn't eating any junk food or drinking soda or any of that stuff. I thought I was doing pretty well for myself. And within a few weeks, my symptoms started to disappear. Within 6 to 8 months, I was 100% back to normal. And I was already studying acupuncture and qigong and Chinese medicine with my other medicine mentor, Dr. George Love, for 10 years prior to that. And after having lived through that experience, I knew I needed a whole change of lifestyle, a whole new career, everything. I was like, I'm not going back to where I came from. So I made the decision to go back and do this full time. And I went back and did a bachelor's in health sciences, a master's, and then later a doctorate in acupuncture and Eastern medicine. I've studied and spent months at a time living with Shaolin monks in China, studying Kung Fu over there, actually going back again soon to do more training with them. And I got into functional medicine about 10 years ago. And I was also working through diets and nutrients and very advanced lab screenings and testing that a lot of doctors don't do. It's like serious stool sample testing and hormone testing and toxin testing, stuff that's like night and day. Most doctors haven't even heard of. And I've seen miracles since then. I feel like I'm a miracle. And I kind of felt like it was now my mission to help other people on the same path. I was so disillusioned and pissed with our medical system.
Oh
I
my
was
gosh,
thinking
me too.
at the time I was, 30, 31 years old. I live in America. I'm employed. I had health insurance. And it seems like all the doctors just send me home to die or trying to turn me into a drug addict. And I was like, this is not acceptable by any means. And this is not
Hmm.
how we should be operating. So, I've kind of dedicated the majority of my life and even put the Breakin and martial arts and my other hobbies kind of from the forefront of my life to the sideline to now help other people clinically and do this and then go out and lecture and speak about this. And I see miracles in the clinic every day. And I have 100 YouTube videos from patients. And some of my patients are doctors and MDs and surgeons and professional athletes and nurses and anesthesiologists. So these are not dumb people who think
No.
it's a placebo or stuff like
Yeah,
that,
placebo.
where we've actually reversed serious chronic illnesses for people, autoimmune disorders, pain, things that, digestive disorders, thyroid problems, things that people have been dealing with sometimes 10, 15, 20, 30 years
Hmm.
and have had no resolution. I have a patient now I'm working with who's seen 46 doctors over the last 9.5 years and has had zero
Oh,
relief. And I just got an email from him
oh my
last week
God.
saying, this is the best month he's had in 9 years
Oh,
after
I love
46
that.
doctors. So, those are the kind of results. If anybody has any sort of unexplained illnesses or weird stuff like that, do not give up. You may have just
Yeah.
not found the right practitioner yet. And if one functional medicine doctor or one acupuncturist doesn't work for you, don't give
Go,
up. They're
yeah,
they're
go
not
see a
all the
new one.
same. They're not all
I
the same.
agree. Well, can I tell you my personal
Please, I would
story?
love to hear.
So, back when I had my oldest daughter, I was a single mom in Chicago, and I had to take the bus and the train every day to work with my infant strapped to my chest, my
Wow.
laptop, my diaper bag. Plus, I was overweight because I had just given birth. I
Right.
had gained like 100 pounds. So, you can imagine the toll it was taking on my back. By the time she was
Mm-hmm.
around, I want to say like 6 months, maybe 6 to 9 months, my back pain was so awful. It hurt when I would cough
I've
or
seen
like
it.
when I was brushing my teeth, I had to lean against the wall because
Mm,
I couldn't lean over the sink. And so I saw doctor after doctor. I'm employed. I'm an American. I have health insurance.
you get
I'm
it.
going to see all these doctors. They're trying to prescribe me pills. They're trying to do all these different things to me. None of it's working. I remember calling my parents who live in New
Mm,
York, crying. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I cannot pick up my child and there's nobody here except for me and I have to go to work and I'm just like crying and crying. My mom, thank the Lord, my mom is such a badass. She goes, I know someone. She
that's
found
it.
this acupuncturist and Chinese herbal medicine
Mm-hmm.
doctor, this Korean guy. For some reason, my mom knows like every Korean in a 100-mile radius plus more. But she goes, I know a guy in the suburbs of Chicago. I'll come out there. We'll go together. He didn't even speak to me in English. He just spoke Korean to my mother and puts me on the table, hooks me up. I didn't even know what he was doing. Like, I did not know what was going to happen. He puts the needles into my back, and right away, I could feel like it felt like that nervy feeling. I was like, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
think he's hitting the spot. But then on top of it, he like hooked it up to a machine
Yeah.
where there was like electricity going through. He leaned,
Electroacupuncture.
yeah, he left the room, didn't tell me what to expect. My back is like spasming. I'm like, I don't know if this is bad or good, but I'm just gonna put all my faith into it because I had nothing, no other options left. And I didn't think at all that an acupuncturist would help this
Mm,
severe chronic pain that I was having. After that one session, I felt not 100% better, but like significantly better. I started going every week, just like you. Within like 6 months, I was probably 100% better. I didn't have any pain anymore. And that allowed me to work out and start losing the weight that I put on from, having my child. And I wound up going to the Circus Arts Training Center and got into the best shape of my life. And it's all because of Dr. Duck and Saw in Chicago, if anyone needs anybody. But I've
Not
seen other acupuncturists here in New York. They do not do the same thing. I do not get the same like effects from them.
there's many different styles of acupuncture, and that's why I say you never give up. If you don't like one, try another. And
Hmm.
same thing, like, if you don't like one chiropractor or one doctor, hey, fire them, go find another one, right? See
Hmm.
what works for you, and don't give up on yourself. I've personally seen that same story for, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of my patients. One of the misconceptions with acupuncture is people think that we only treat back pain or neck pain. What they don't realize is we actually treat internal medicine, and the herbal medicine is our internal medicine. And for people who think it's, pseudoscientific or ridiculous, I'll have them kind of remember, where do all our pharmaceuticals come from, right? Most of them are extracts of some kind of herbal medicine or something that
Yeah, they're just
have been
like
worked at some point.
man-made versions of the natural remedy.
Extra concentrated, isolated for, molecules and mechanisms of
Hmm.
actions and all that. But these things have a long, well documented history out of the Eastern medicine tradition. We have over 2,000 years of actual documentation on this kind of stuff, not to mention all the stuff prior to that that, wasn't written, or, just kind of passed down orally. So that is the actual definition of the scientific method. It's been tested on billions of people over thousands of years, and we know exactly what works and what doesn't work. And obviously, no treatment works for everybody. Same thing with pharmaceuticals; they don't work for everybody. What I will tell you is, and I published a paper on this a few years ago, during the COVID era, about the bias of, scientific bias against herbal medicine, versus pharmaceuticals. And when you look at the overall, there's no comparison. The herbal medicine is far, far, far safer than any sort of pharmaceutical. There are
Hmm.
almost, it's almost nil. It's negligible, the amount of injuries or things that happen. Compared to pharmaceuticals, there's about 7,000 Americans that die every year just from ibuprofen and Tylenol,
Really?
right? 7,000, and
I've
that's
been
not
taking
count.
ibuprofen like nobody's business the last
And
couple
that's not
days.
counting. That's not counting the overdoses. That's not counting the gastric bleeding that causes, or the liver
Mm.
damage that
Hmm.
acetaminophen causes over time. That's just deaths. How many people
Really?
are dying from herbs every year in the United States? You probably can't even find one.
No, I totally agree. And we're running out of time, but I did want to quickly touch on or get your thoughts on psilocybin
Hmm.
shrooms versus ketamine, because we know
Mm,
ketamine is not a natural drug, correct?
not correct.
It's not?
So
It's a
there,
natural drug?
no, well, so the ketamine that's used in the clinic is synthesized. But
Okay.
they recently discovered, I think this was only the last year or two, they found a fungus that was growing ketamine crystals on it naturally in nature. So now
Where? Do we know where?
I don't remember, but we can probably, I mean, there's a study published on, we could find the information on it. So
I want to know
now,
if like back in the day people were using it for whatever we're using it
who
now for.
knows? I think that'd be more of an assumption than a clinical thing. But now the current theory is that we have synthesized this compound, but it did exist in nature, right? And when you look at trials talking about, let's compare them. If you look at the brain scans and you look at like functional MRIs for brain activity of psilocybin versus ketamine, there's
Mhm.
actually more activity going on, and there's more interconnectedness and neuroplasticity and things going on under ketamine than psilocybin. That being
Really?
said, personally, I still think the natural way, the plant medicine, the way it was put on this earth for us and our
Yeah.
ancestors used it, is always going to be better. Same thing with the
Mhm.
cannabis and the herbs. Now, sometimes it may not be strong enough. Sometimes
Mhm.
you might not have access to it. Sometimes there's too many risk factors involved. So I think, ketamine, which is legal, it is off-label use, to use it for psychiatric purposes, but it's widely accepted now. There are insurances starting to reimburse.
Oh,
There's
really?
different ways to do it. There's intramuscular, intravenous. There's
Ooh.
lozenges that some people even do for home use. There is Spravato, which is a nasal spray. That one is actually insurance reimbursable but it's only
Dang.
half the compound. They actually I'm not a fan of the method, but it is insurance reimbursable. So I think that is a benefit to people who can't afford, these expensive therapeutics.
Mhm.
I think the main takeaway when you look at these kinds of compounds, whether it be psilocybin or LSD or ketamine or even MDMA, when you look at the research, and there's quite a bit of research that's been done in the last 10, 20 plus years on it, and research that, going back to probably the 50s, 60s, and so on. And with the plant medicines, thousands of years of indigenous cultures that have kind of honed this process. Out of all the clinical trials, most of these compounds are getting anywhere from 60 to 70% reduction of symptoms in things like treatment resistant depression, meaning they've already tried every medication. They've tried TMS, they've tried EDMR, they've tried psychotherapy. Nothing has worked. And then they do 2 high dose psilocybin sessions, and boom, my incurable, intractable depression of 20 something years is a year later is gone. And I'm not taking medication every day. Right. So
Yeah, that's so wild. Like, I want that.
everybody deserves to have access to that. I was actually part of a team of doctors that we helped sue the DEA in a case based on right to try laws. A doctor by the name of Sunil Agarwal with the Ames Institute. We just went in front of the Ninth District Court, which is one level below the Supreme Court, and won the case. Now, that really just means the DEA now has to come up with a response of why they keep denying it. There are these right to try laws that are federal and state laws that say that if somebody is dying, if you have a terminal illness, if you have cancer or whatever kind of, if you're end stage and you want something to treat your anxiety or depression, because, end of life is pretty scary, I think, for a lot of people, that you are legally allowed to have access to investigational compounds who have passed phase 1 clinical trials. Now, psilocybin is already in phase
Oh,
3 clinical trials, which will be completed soon. Next year, it'll go up to the FDA for FDA approval. So they've passed phase 1, they've passed phase 2 clinical trials. They've been found to be safe and effective, but the DEA is still denying these patients access to these medications, which is illegal. So Dr. Agarwal started a case. There's been 3 appeals already, and we've gone into, like I said, the Ninth District Court recently. I'm being represented by 2 attorneys out of New Jersey, Joseph Shapiro and Dan McKillop. The firm that handled most of it is Hush Blackwell, I believe, and there's a couple other brilliant doctors that have been kind of arguing the case over there. And now we're waiting to see what the DA's excuse is for refusing this. The evidence is clear, and I was one of a team of different doctors and institutes that kind of signed in to basically put our thoughts and our name on the line to be able to push some of this um, forward and through legislation, because it's going to be slow turning. But I think people deserve access to these natural compounds. Very little side effects, and to be clear, I do not advocate for home use of like things like ketamine. There are companies that
okay.
send lozenges home. I think it's a drug that
Really?
has, yes,
I'd be scared.
I agree with you. I think the potential for abuse is too great.
Yeah.
And I think, it can be addictive. And I just don't think those
Oh,
kinds of compounds should be going home. Now, if people want to experiment with cannabis or, psilocybin, I don't advocate for illegal use, but I think we should have that freedom. If I can grow mint and tomatoes in my garden, which
yes.
are medicinal, I
Yeah.
think I should be able to grow any medicine I want, and the government and everybody else should keep their hands off it and mind their own business.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's wild for anyone, like, the fact that seeds, the
Yeah.
seed of a
Or
plant
spores.
was illegal, yeah, or spores, is insane to me.
Well, with
Completely
psilocybin, the
insane.
spores and actually buying the spores are legal.
It's
Growing them and
legal?
it is legal. Growing them and consuming them is not legal, right? You
So
can buy the spores for experiments, and you can actually buy kits online and elsewhere. So it's illegal to grow them and consume them and use them, but it's legal to purchase. The laws are very confusing.
well,
But if
they're
this is
changing a
something
lot too.
There's
Uh,
more and more states that we see legislation now, pro psychedelic legislation, if that's what you want to call it, in probably 30 plus states in the United States. So there are cities that have already decriminalized. There's
yeah.
cities that have allowed medicalization. There's states and cities that are basically like, hey, we're not playing this game anymore, and it's just going to be kind of free range. So, I think that the movement is pushing forward. It seems to be moving a lot faster than the cannabis movement.
It kind
Cannabis
of
took a long
does.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in Florida, right? Cannabis is still not legal here. We have
Wait,
medicalization.
what?
It's not recreational. You still
Oh
need
my.
a license to go and get it.
So if I go to
Uh,
Florida and I'm smoking weed on like at an
It's probably
Airbnb,
not gonna be as enforced nowadays as it used to be because so
right?
many people have their medical cards, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a travesty that you can arrest somebody for having medicine, yet I could go drink as much as I want to, and we
I
know that
know
is one of the leading causes of death
that.
in this country and the world
Mm-hmm.
from, so many different things. I mean, everything from, domestic, violence to,
Car
car
accident.
accidents to
Yeah.
liver cirrhosis
Mhm.
and every other disease is associated with alcohol. I mean, you're talking about diabetes, obesity, heart
Mhm.
disease, all these things that are perpetuated and move forward by, alcohol and legal drugs. And then you're talking about these plant compounds that are completely safe. Now, I don't think you should be smoking and eating mushrooms and driving your car around. That's clearly
No,
not safe. But as a responsible adult, if I could have a drink at home and watch the game or have a barbecue, I think we should have the option to use other plants that we can grow on our own.
I agree. Well, we are coming to an end, and this has been such a great conversation. It's so great to have you here, and I want to make sure that I give you a huge thank you, Dr. Jonathan. Please tell everyone where they can find you.
Thank you for. I enjoyed it as well. I think it's very informational. I had a lot of fun, and looking forward to putting some good stuff out there. And I hope this helps some people who are going through some hard times. And if you need any help, we also do free consults for people if they're having any chronic illnesses or issues that aren't getting any better. You can find me at Create Health. That's CR8 Health. The letter C, the letter R, the number 8 Health. So createhealth.com or at CR8 Health. Or you could look me up on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook at Jonathan M. Fields. It's JONATHAN, and the letter M like Matthew Fields.
And I'll make sure that I put all the links in the show notes.
I'd appreciate that.
Thank you again. Until next time, everyone, stay lit, y'all.